welcome everybody to today's session. I can see that we are getting a few more participants joining as we speak. Again, just a reminder that today's session is being recorded. Any questions that you do have throughout today's session, if you could pop those in the chat function, in the Q&A function rather than the chat function, that would be fantastic. And what we will be doing is running through today's schedule, and at the end of the session we will then pursue with any questions that are in the chat function, unless it's anything specific to the points being made at the time. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed today's session. We will be sending out a recording of the session on the back of today's session. If you have any questions relating to today's session on the back of session, please do drop any comments over to me on an email. You will see contact details at the end for both myself and my colleague Jill. Do you have anything to add, Shirley?
No, that's fine. Let's crack on, because for the people that have made it on time, I think we should start promptly. So good morning, everybody. What we're going to do is, as Lauren said, we're certainly going to record the first part of this session. Then what I'd like to do, and I will be taking questions on what I'm going to show you throughout that. Then what I'm going to do is probably pause the recording and see if there's anyone that wants to actually chat about net zero. It's one of those topics where sometimes it can feel a little bit exposing. So let's have a little bit of space to raise anything if that's helpful. So my name's Sherry Lee Miles. I'm one of the co-founding directors of Go for Growth, and also of a sister organisation, Net Positive Futures. I'm a sustainability consultant, and I have been helping people to make sense of sustainability for over 20 years on a really human level. So very much sustainability and the various language sets around that, whether it's net zero, whether it's sustainability, whether it's climate focused, climate action. Trying to cut through the terminology and actually help people understand what it means in their context and what they should be doing about it. So what we've been working on with Go for Growth is particularly helping SME and VCSE providers to the public sector to engage with the public sector, to win work with the public sector, but to remove any barriers to working with public sector organisations. And because very recently it has been agreed that public contracts over, for the moment, £5 million, but public contracts will have a requirement to have a carbon reduction plan. We thought actually that could be a barrier for SMEs and VCSEs, but also it's probably indicative of the direction of travel. So if this is coming for everybody, let's be ahead of this. And rather than waiting for someone to say you have to have a carbon reduction plan, let's help those organisations that want to explore what that means, work out what that means as soon as possible. And we like to make things as easy as possible. There are lots of people that will be keen to overcomplicate things. That's not us. What we're trying to do is help smaller organisations in particular understand this in their context in ways that just feel manageable. So we have, to that end, created some software. So Net Positive Futures have for a number of years been creating engagement software in a range of different contexts, and we're bringing this to Go for Growth to help make sense of and create an action plan around carbon reduction activities. And I'm just going to show you it this morning. So just let me share my screen. As Lauren said, any questions in the Q&A, she's going to be picking those up for me, and we'll pick those up as we go through if they're appropriate, and if not, we'll hang on until the end. So you should be able to see the Go for Growth carbon reduction plan landing page for this particular platform. So this is completely free to use for public sector providers. So there are there's lots of information on the internet that will quite quickly result in you needing to either buy carbon credits, because that seems to be a thing, or additional support. That's not what this is. This is free for you because we work with the public sector customers who are trying to support their marketplaces and their SME marketplace in particular, and their VCSE providers in particular, and they provide this for you free of charge. So that it is not a route to any paid for services. Just want to be really clear about that right from the start. So this is the landing page, and there is already a demo on here that Lauren's created that will take you through the steps that you will need to undertake to create a compliant carbon reduction plan. So we've based this on the Cabinet Office guidance for what a good carbon reduction plan would include. Again, not necessary unless you have a contract over £5 million at the moment, but based on that good practice. So there's a little bit of information that you can click off to here about the net zero target. So the UK target of 100% reduction in carbon by 2050, and a bit more about the public procurement notice if you actually want to read the detail of it. But again, we're trying to make it easy, so you don't have to do that. You can simply log in. Now, I've already logged in on this one. If it's your first time logging in, you will just need to create a login. And again, just for full transparency, you can read the terms and conditions down at the bottom and the privacy notices. We will not sell or share your information. This is shared purely with those public sector clients that have paid for the tool, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the first section. So the tool itself is in 3 steps. So there's a sort of positioning element here about your organisation. Then we'll explore some of the carbon challenges, and then we'll look at your actual carbon reduction plan. So this first section is a series of fairly straightforward questions. And again, in terms of that data piece, just for clarity, there's 2 reasons why we're asking for this information. Either it is useful for the public sector customers to be able to, they just need to know who they've helped, how they've helped. They are keen to understand the activities that are taking place in the SME and VCSE marketplace, so that they can provide additional support and resources so that those barriers are removed. So there's an element of it is helpful for us to be able to look at the data through a particular category, so size of business, for example, or whether you are a voluntary community or social enterprise, whether you're a limited company, and the sectors. So if we have public sector clients who are in blue light, for example, they might be particularly interested in the responses of providers to them. The other reason that we're asking some of these questions is that it will change what you will see in the next stage. So there's an example down here where we're asking about whether or not you, where's it go? Sorry, bear with me. Here, whether you own some or all of your premises. Obviously, the things that you can do to reduce your impact, your carbon impact, are dependent on things such as whether or not you have your own premises. So it might tailor some of the content. And then this third section, these are optional, so you can answer these questions, which will help you to create your, they'll help you to articulate your carbon targets, and you can calculate, include where you've calculated any things already, and these will pull through to your final action plan. And you will need to complete this second section for your carbon reduction plan to be compliant. So it's optional, but it won't be compliant unless you do include this information. You will also, for this section, need to save it before you move on, which isn't the case in the later sections. So there's a little bit more information here, because again, there are some assumptions that you will understand things like scopes 1 and 2 emissions targets, and you may not. So there's a bit more information here about what the scopes mean. And if you haven't set your baseline year yet, you can simply say we haven't set our baseline yet. But this is just a way of capturing the information that's required for a carbon reduction plan to be compliant according to the Cabinet Office at the moment. We have, you may have calculated Scope 3 emissions. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next sections, and if you have, you can include those. The criteria for a compliant carbon reduction plan is to look at the 15 Scope 3 areas and select at least, I think it's at least 3. We've selected the 5 that we think you are most likely to be able to get useful data on at the moment, and we've included those. Again, have you got targets, and do you have a system in place to monitor them? The target is part of the activity, but obviously a system to monitor and report on activities just as important. So that kind of governance element is something that you can just include here as well. And then alongside the actual information that's required, we've provided a way of thinking about how you might take action to start to reduce those carbon impacts. What we've discovered over the years is that the creation of a commitment is obviously only the start of something, and then it can get a little trickier. And again, we're just trying to make it easy for you to see what you perhaps should be thinking about if you're not already. So we've broken this down quite simply into 3 sections. So we're looking at your carbon challenges in relation to Scope 1, 2 and 3, which is just the different ways that emissions are considered. So the Scope 1 emissions are your direct emissions that come from sources controlled by you. So your facilities, your fleet, things that you use in your business activities. Scope 2 is the emissions from the energy that you buy, and Scope 3 are those that are relating more to the things that you have some impact on but aren't directly your impact. So things like fleet and procurement and supply chain and travel. But all you have to do to develop your action plan is to select the statements that you think are probably true for your business, for your organisation. Again, there's a bit more context here if you click on the little eye icon. So you might need to reduce the carbon impact of your vehicle fleet, and if you do, there's a bit more information as to whether that might be something that you should explore. So at this stage, you are simply selecting the things that you think, yes, we probably do need to do that. So if you have a business operations that use a lot of single-use items, single-use plastic in particular, but anything that's used once and then thrown away, so you've got a significant waste footprint, you might need to consider those. If you do have fleet, you might want to consider that. For Scope 2, this is around exploration of renewable energy, and these things are likely to be their efficiencies. So the hope is that they're also going to save money, particularly with the energy market as it is at the moment. We might want to think about energy efficiency in buildings or the energy efficiency of equipment, or we might, if we do have our own buildings, be looking at use of renewables actually on site and whether that's something that is worth exploring. You can also move these around to prioritize them. So actually, if you think that's the thing that could help you to reduce your carbon most significantly, you can put that to the top of your list, which will pull through into your action plan. So for Scope 3, as I said, this is business travel and your procurement. Again, selecting the things that you think are relevant. If you've got impacts around transportation, distribution, if you move goods or people, that might be something that you're interested in exploring. Possibly investments. Again, entirely up to you, completely based around your business or organisational context. Really straightforward. Select the ones that are relevant. And when you click through to create your carbon reduction plan, what we will do is we'll suggest some things that you might be able to do to reduce those impacts. So if you are looking at managing your waste more effectively, you could carry out some kind of a waste audit, make sure your bin signage is clear. There are lots of things that you can do around waste. Make a plan to reducing, just providing some focus for your efforts around carbon reduction, linking maybe to things that might be of interest if you are trying to do a particular carbon reduction activity. So things around efficiency with the goods and services that you are utilising, things around fleet. If you're already doing some of these activities, and the chances are you will be, you can indicate where you've got these in progress, or if you've already undertaken an activity, you might say that you had a feasibility study 2022, for example, and capture some of that activity. If you're doing something that hasn't been pre-populated, you can add a tailored action, and you can indicate the activity that you've taken to mitigate that particular challenge. So we will end up with an action plan that's completely tailored to your context and enables you to capture any progress to date, gives you a sense of where you should be aiming. You can take out anything that you don't think is relevant, even at this final stage. You can add things to make it completely fit for purpose. And if you've included your targets at the start, when you export this as a PDF, just show you on this one, it will pull through your information. I mean, it's going to take its time. It's going to pull through all of the targets, making it compliant. It's going to highlight the actions that you've taken or are planning to take to mitigate against those things. And you've got a really well thought out, robust carbon reduction plan. And over time, you can go back and you can update it, and you can make it fit for purpose, use it to actually reduce the carbon footprint of your organisation. There are just one more thing that I'll show you before I pop out. You can share a copy of this. So if you are wanting to just share a flat copy, you can do that with a link, or you can invite other people to contribute. If you have perhaps a waste manager or somebody that's looking after your fleet, and you want to invite them to contribute to a certain part of this, or you've got a financial controller who might have access to the bills and can provide you with the data that you need, you can invite them to contribute here by sending them an invitation. They'll then have the same access that you have. So from a creation of a carbon reduction plan, we think it's relatively straightforward. There are some frequently asked questions. Lauren will provide the information of how you can get in touch with us at the end, but you will end up with, in a fairly straightforward activity, with a useful, hopefully practical carbon reduction plan for your organisation. I'm going to hop out, see if there were any questions. Anything at all? I mean, it might be that it was understood in such a way that you can see exactly what it's going to do. Any thoughts, reflections? Does it look like it might be useful? You're muted. Lauren, come off mute.
I'm talking and I was on mute, apologies. All I was saying is there's nothing in the Q&A function at this point in time, but if we leave a couple of moments, there may be something pops up if anybody's currently typing. But thank you very much for the demo, Shirley. It's really useful.
Thank you, no problem. I mean, we don't tend to get lots of questions because it is fairly self-explanatory, and it has been designed to be self-explanatory. As I said, we will in a second just pause the recording and make sure that there isn't anything else anyone wants to say.
Yeah, I think maybe if we paused now, and then there's the chance for anybody to hop on if they wanted to do so.